Markout Mania. Markout Mania. Reviews and yelling, reviews and yelling. Markout Mania. Hola amigos and welcome to Mark Out Mania! I'm Dro, aka Pedro Boyd, aka Texan Spaniard on Twitter and YouTube, and this is my podcast where I share my thoughts on pro wrestling, sports, TV, and other stuff. Originally, the plan this week was to share some thoughts with everyone on the start of the Premier League season and touch on Booker T's Reality of Wrestling promotion, which I got to see an episode of recently. But some things came up this week. A lot of business to deal with, and then I listened to Steve Austin's podcast with Vampiro, and that got me all jonesing hard for Lucha Underground, that the whole direction of this episode veered towards a different direction. What's that direction, you ask? Lucha Libre Grab Bag! Lucha Libre Grab Bag is me picking 5 matches from Mexico to check out, culled from AAA, CMLL, IWRG, and Indies, and hopefully marking out over them. So, let's do this! First up, from CMLL, August 3rd of this year, 2015, from Arena Puebla, Valedor Jr. vs. Los Sombra. I remember the first time I watched the Valedor Jr. vs. La Sombra match from New Japan's Fantastic Mania show from 2012, I think. And what an amazing match that was. So many incredible moves, the fantastic crowd, the phenomenal near falls, a really great match that I can't recommend enough to anyone listening to this who has never seen it. It is a true must-see match. Since that time, I have seen many Valedor Jr. vs. La Sombra matches from Mexico, and none of them have lived up to that match from Japan. This match is no different, and I think a big part of the reason is CMLL has a specific formula to their main event single matches, and all of them follow it, and they're all boring to some extent because of it. The formula is basically this: first 2 falls are super quick, and the third fall is a back and forth exchange of big moves and near falls, with both fighters acting as if they're near death, even though they only fought for, maybe sometimes less than 5 minutes in the first 2 falls combined. CMLL has stuck to this formula so militantly for nearly 5 years now that I feel the time has come for them to drop the 2 out of 3 falls and just do 1 fall, because they do not seem interested in crafting legitimately good 2 out of 3 falls matches anymore in CMLL. All that being said, of course these two brought out amazing stuff for the third fall of this match. A cartwheel turned into a Pele kick, reverse Hurricane Ranas, superplex off the top, rolled through into a second suplex, awesome dives and planchas. These two definitely went all out within the CMLL main event formula in the third fall, but the formula basically handicaps the effort. You can't feel real drama, tension, and surprise with what happens because you basically know how it is going to play out in CMLL main events, and it does just that. So watch this for the cool moves and great effort, but don't expect a real classic from these two in CMLL unless they get serious about changing the formula or dropping the 2 out of 3 falls gimmick altogether. For the record, I have always been a big fan of the 2 out of 3 falls gimmick, and for a long time felt that that was the standard Lucha Libre should always adhere to. But these past few years of CMLL turning it into this boring formula, resulting in boring anticlimactic matches, has changed my opinion on it. Either do it right or drop it is how I feel now, because they're not doing a good job with it for quite some time. Up next, let's look at the AAA promotion and Triple Mania 23 from Arena Ciudad de Mexico. In the main event, Rey Mysterio Jr. vs. Mystices. I have heard a lot this week about how awful the Triple Mania show was this past weekend. They had lots of technical issues, they had bad booking, a lot of people didn't like the commentary, yada yada yada. I'm not here to discuss any of that business, really. I want to talk about the main event. Rey Mysterio Jr. in a dream match against Mystices, a.k.a. the original Mystico, a.k.a. the original Sin Cara. And in my opinion, they totally delivered in giving this show and the fans a hell of a main event. First, you had the epic entrances. Mystices came down from the ceiling, had awesome gear on. Rey Mysterio came out with those wings that could move up and down, and he had like this boss gear on. Cool, like almost Hawkman mask. Great entrances and gear that really set the tone that this was going to be an epic match, and it totally was. Tons of crazy spots and moves. Power bombs through announce tables, suplex out of the ring, through a table, Bronco senton off the top to the floor outside, swanton splash, Mystices using Rey's 619 on him, Rey using Mystices La Mystica on him, Mystices bleeding, just tons of cool stuff. There were legit dramatic near falls, lots of them, where I genuinely believed the match was over. I had no idea who was going to win and was on the edge of my seat. And I was personally blown away that Rey won with Mystico's La Mystica. Wow, I did not see that coming. Holy moly, that was great. That was a cool finish. The post-match angle was kind of too long, and Mystices had telegraphed his heel turn, that it was coming throughout the match. But I actually thought it wasn't bad. It was kind of cool. I saw, a lot of folks basically calling it wrestle crap, but I don't agree. I thought it was pretty cool. And Mystices playing the Rudo against Rey in a rematch will be phenomenal in my opinion. One small word about the commentary. I saw this with the English commentary, and I actually think Matt Stryker and Hugo did a pretty good job with it. I really like them coming up with this explanation, like a great explanation for the slow count in Lucha Libre. I thought that was a really good touch. And a way to, because I know they were thinking about, the American audiences seeing this, so I thought that they did a good job of covering that up. I really, really enjoyed this match a lot. And while it's not up there with the highs of Lucha Underground, it was pretty damn good wrestling in my book. Dug this, and now I have to watch the Alberto Cage hair match from this show. So, let's move on to the same show, Triple Mania 23, Alberto El Patron versus Cage in a hair match. Ooh. So another thing this week, the majority of comments I saw about this match is that it wasn't very good, with a few people saying they thought it was okay, but most of the things I saw, people didn't like the match. And well, I don't know if it's because I saw this with the Spanish commentary, but for me, this was tons of fun. I enjoyed the hell out of this match. It's a wild brawl with blood, tables, seconds getting involved, a crooked referee, then the said crooked referee getting his comeuppance, the Mexican hero getting revenge via low bro and cross arm breaker submission victory. There is a near fall. I think it was when Cage threw Alberto off the top through the table. I thought it was over. I thought it was over, and Alberto was going to get his head shaved. And then when El Patron kicked out, I marked out like a nut. Oh man, I marked out. I enjoyed this match so much. It may not be a 5-star classic, but it was action-packed. It tells a story. It had things play out to a satisfying conclusion. The foreign heel gets his head shaved. I'm good with everything that happened here. I really, really dug the heck out of this match and recommend watching it with Spanish commentary. Moving along, let's look at IWRG August 15th of this year from Arena, I don't know how to say this, Arena Nacopan. And it was a trios match, Alas de Acero, Aramis, and Eterno versus Espada de Plata, Kaiser Drago, and Oficial 911. And CML, take note, a 2 out of 3 falls match that doesn't do the 2 super short falls and 1 long fall format. This was 3 longer falls that built up one to another. The first fall had all the chain wrestling, filling out sequences. Then Rudo's, had enough of that bulldoze to the finish. Second fall was Rudo's on the rampage, isolating each opponent one at a time with 3-way beatdowns. And then the Technicals making the big action-packed comeback and tying things up to set the stage for the third fall, which is, lots of back and forth, some dives, and unfortunately a finish that we didn't get to see. All the work here was pretty solid, nothing spectacular, but very solid stuff. The match had a great layout, and they did roughly, I'd say like 9 to 10 minute long falls that felt much more satisfying than the CMLL formula, in my opinion. Biggest knock on this match though is the production. It was basically two cameras, one further away to show the whole ring, like and it's like a camera that's stuck in one position, and then one guy that's at ringside, and so there's always like action that is being missed. Sometimes you're missing it, unfortunately, because of the how it was set up. And as I mentioned earlier, that included the finish, which they didn't show at all. But still, it was a fun match. I enjoyed it despite some of the sloppy execution and production flaws. It's not a must-see by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a fun match nonetheless. Finally, I'm going to look at two Lightning matches. Lightning matches are singles matches from CMLL that are one fall with a 10-minute time limit. I have been a big fan of these matches from the inception because they're short and often a lot of fun. So, the first one up, CML from August 4th of this year from Arena, Mexico. It's Fuego versus Tiger. It's a fun match. Both guys cut a good pace here and they tried really hard. Neither guy has a lot of polish, so some of the execution was a touch sloppy, and none of the moves were especially spectacular, but give them more time. They both show promise in this. Fuego does a little dance thing from time to time as part of his gimmick, and I like that touch conceptually. But he is not very convincing when he does it. It seems a bit forced. So hopefully he'll get that down better in the future because that could be like a fun part of the gimmick. He just has to believe. Fuego gets the win via a roll-up. The other one is CMLL from August 11th of this year from Arena, Mexico. Pegaso versus Virus. Virus is a short in height but tall and super badass luchador, known for his great chain wrestling and mat skills and complicated submissions. Pegaso has a cool costume and mask, does some cool moves. This was fun stuff, but I thought it would feature more of that great mat wrestling that I'm used to seeing in Virus matches. It was a bit light on that, but it did have some cool stuff. This had a more deliberate pace than the other one I watched, which was a nice change, and the execution and work was obviously on a higher level than the previous one because the guys involved are so good, with Virus being a pretty great worker in my opinion. Virus gets the win with one of his cool submissions. Fun stuff. And that, amigos, was the Lucha Libre grab bag. I'm not going to set a subject for next week's show. We'll let things play out organically here, but I do want to encourage everyone to follow me on Twitter at texanspaniard and check out my YouTube account with the same handle. Also, give a look to my art and music Tumblr, which you can find at pedroboy.tumblr.com. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Take care and adios.